It has been a long, long time since I get to see you. Really pumped. Want to tell you, Andy, and I are a little bit different. I don't know if you guys have ever noticed that. Like, he's really like a good dresser and smart and good looking, and he has all these incredible tastes in art, and he really likes Home Alone. That's not who I am. I mean, I have a completely different taste in movies, and today I want to show you a clip of my favorite movie, one of them of all time. Maybe you guys have seen it, and I also realize I'm dating myself here because I think this movie came out in like the mid-90s. So that may be older than some of you guys, and I apologize for that, but listen, you should watch this movie. So here's a little clip of the movie, and I hope that you enjoy it, like it, or watch it.
All 13 flight controllers, give me a go, no go for launch.
You know that Easter vacation trip we had planned for Acapulco?
Procedures, go, control.
Go flight.
There might be a slight change in destination. Maybe say, the moon.
Booster,
Go.
retro,
Or go flight.
GNC,
Or go. And I take the controls and I steer it around.
FAO.
We go fly. For a nice, soft landing on the moon. Better than the alarm shot.
Does it bother you that the public regards this flight as routine?
There's nothing routine about flying to the moon. I can vouch for that.
Launch control, this is Houston. We are go for launch.
Houston, we have cleared the tower at 1313.
Hey guys, we're going to the moon.
This is the crew of Apollo 13, wishing everyone back up
Rats.
on Earth pleasant evening.
Houston, we have a problem. We got a wicked shimmy up here.
Houston, we are venting something out into space. It's definitely a gas of some sort.
Flight, the heart rates are skyrocketing. The Apollo 13 spacecraft is apparently losing breathing oxygen. The emergency has ruled out any chance of a lunar landing.
Why are so many people here? Something broke on your daddy's spaceship.
I have a request from the news people.
Take it up with my husband. He'll be home on Friday.
Flight me and lost the radio contact.
Econ, what's your dad telling you?
It's reading a quadruple failure. That can't happen. It's got to be instrumentation.
Explain your dad.
This rate, we're going to skip right out of the atmosphere. We're never going to get back.
We're looking at less than 15 minutes of life support in the Odyssey. We never lost an American in space. We're sure as hell not going to lose one on our watch.
Odyssey, do you read me?
How long does it take to power up the lamp?
3 hours by the checklist.
We don't have that much time.
How many of you have not seen it? Just raise your hand if you've not seen it, okay? Let me tell you something. Watch that movie. Let me tell you why it's one of my favorite movies, okay? A, it's a true story. Home Alone is incredible. It could be a true story. Apollo 13, listen, any of you guys are like history people, let me explain. Before, you were all born, before I was born, the big race, the Cold War was going on, okay? So Russia and the Americans were literally fighting over space, not outer space, but space on Earth, trying to take it over, basically. And they were ahead when it came to things really kind of dominating most of Europe. And John F. Kennedy basically gave a vision to the American people and to his administration, saying, we want to get to the moon, send a person to the moon by the end of the 60s. At the time, that was just absolutely ludicrous to think that they could do that. But the brightest minds, the most brilliant people all came together, and they worked hard, and by the end of the 60s, they put a man on the moon. The Mercury missions and then the Apollo missions were some of the most amazing things ever that have ever happened for mankind. And what it did is it unified all of these people to work together. And that particular mission, what happened was that was years in the making. It wasn't like they said, hey, we should go back to the moon. They had planned this trip out, but on the way, an oxygen tank blew. So here's the thing, millions of dollars, the brightest minds in our nation at the time, all working together, had to change their mission. And their mission became, how do we get the 3 back? So for the few of you who have not seen it, I just want to challenge you guys to go see that movie sometime. It's incredible. But the mission, literally, they unified and they got these 3 guys back home. And how they did it is unbelievable. But there was this point in the movie, which I really love, where, some of the people are doubting. They're like, this could be the worst disaster we've ever had. NASA, this is the worst disaster ever. And the leader literally looked at him and said, no, I believe it's going to be our finest hour. Because in his mind, he believed that when they unified, put everything together, that it would be the moment that reflected the beauty and the majesty that God had given these minds of people to work together to bring these 3 men home. So I love the movie. I'm a big fan of it. I want to just tell you should go see it. If you did see it, then you know what I'm talking about. Watch it again. Share it with your future children. It'd be awesome. Also, I hope you guys had a great weekend. Anything big on Thanksgiving? Buckeyes. How about Auburn? That was like the pie for Thanksgiving, right? Like you have this incredible time with your family and friends, and you win by 1 point on a 2-point conversion fail. It was incredible. And then Auburn comes through. There's a chance the Buckeyes are playing for the title. If the BCS people can get it right, I mean, it's going to be great. So I hope you're excited like I am. Anyway, great weekend. We're in the middle of a series, and now that you realize I'm a little bit of a nerd for certain movies, this series that we're in, and obviously I picked this for a reason, is we're in a series called Lives That Reflect. And we talk about empathy, and we talk about forgiveness and reconciliation, and we talk about a servanthood. And if you're like me, you listen to those and you're challenged, right? I remember when Chris was telling us about what he wanted to talk about with empathy, and he started reading all the passages of where Paul prayed for the churches. And I remember, I think I looked over here and I'm like, I suck. Like, I'm the worst pastor ever. Paul's the greatest. I wish Paul could come and be your pastor. I mean, he just loves the people. He never stops praying for them. I was so challenged by that. And then, the forgiveness, talk. I mean, I hope that you guys have really let that seep in. Just the idea that when we forgive like Jesus, we look more like Jesus than any other point. And reconciliation that we have in relationships here are a reflection of the reconciliation between the Father and us through the Son. It's just incredible. And the servanthood, message, just this idea that Jesus didn't come to be served, but to serve, and that's who we are. And then when these things happen, we are literally reflecting our Father. That's what we all should be like, right? These behaviors should be normal to us. It should be, just common for us to shine like that, to reflect God's glory. But you might be thinking, okay, yeah, I mean, last week, Caleb brought up the idea of who Chris is, and Chris is this great guy, and when you look at Chris's life, you see he reflects. But it's kind of like, in the church, not New Life per se, but in the church, it's kind of like there's like little beacons, But there's no like huge floodlights happening, right? It's like we see these little lights going everywhere, but we never see it collectively, all together, unified, where the church is literally just shining out everywhere. Even here in New Life, it's hard because if you're like me, you get a little self-absorbed, you get a little, you'd rather live in dark stuff than you would in light stuff. It's a struggle. So the question I've been thinking about is, well, what would happen if we did all shine at the same time? What if these behaviors, what if it all happened? What if we were so unified? What would happen on our campus even? Now, the question you have to ask is, what would that look like? How would that happen? That would have to be a miracle of God, and I agree with you. But what I want to talk about, I think, is central to the whole thing. If we're going to reflect who God is, His beauty in our campus and in our families and with our co-workers, with our classmates, if we're going to do that, we need to have unity. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And this beautiful passage that Jillian read, just this prayer of Jesus, it really kind of goes through this incredible idea of unity, of what Jesus is about. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at that. I'm not going to go over the whole passage because it's long, but I'm just going to pick out a few points and kind of share with you what I believe Jesus is talking about when he talks about unity. So if you have a Bible, open up to John chapter 17, and I'm just going to bring up some points here. And let me give you a little bit of background. So imagine this is the night that Jesus had given the Last Supper. So he's been telling his guys he's going to die. They don't really understand yet, but he's telling them. look, I'm going to be dead. I'm going to be broken. My body's going to be shed. I mean, this is going to happen. And then after that, he goes out and he prays. And this is right before, he gets arrested and crucified. And in this passage, this prayer between him and the Father really gives you a glimpse of who Jesus is. And the first thing I want to say is that unity is very important to Jesus. It's a real big deal. Look at verse 11. Here's what it says. I'll start in 10. It says, all I have is yours, and all you have is mine, and glory has come to me through them. He's talking about the disciples. He's praying for his disciples to the Father at this moment. I will remain in the world no longer, but they are still in the world, and I am coming to you, Holy Father. Protect them by the power of your name, the name you gave me, so that they may be one as we are one. So he's praying for his guys. He's getting ready to go, and he's like, these are my guys. I've poured my life into them. Let them be one just like we're one. Then he turns down to verse 20. And here's what he says, my prayer is not for them alone, but I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message. So Jesus is actually praying for us, for all future believers. I mean, think about that just for a second. Jesus is looking forward to today and seeing your life, my life, the church, and going, I'm praying for them. And here's what he prays for them. That all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. And I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. I and them and you and me, may they be brought to complete unity, to let the world know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. He's praying for unity for the believers. He's praying for his disciples. He's praying for us, that we would be one, just like the Father and He are one. I have been in the room with people who were about to die. I spent weeks in the hospital with both my parents before they passed away, and visitors would come in. And this is interesting, how people interact with someone who you know is going to be gone. Really, people cut through all of the small talk. They say what's most important. I remember Tammy's aunt. She was, she has a disease called Wagner's, which is a terminal disease, which basically kind of ruins your lungs. And she was in the hospital, and it literally, everyone thought it's imminent. I mean, she's going to be gone any moment. And they're like, okay, Ed, it's your turn to go in. And I remember thinking, what do you say to a person? The last thing you say to them when you know that they could be gone at any minute. You say what's most important. You say what means the most to you in those moments. I remember when my mom passed away, it took a week in the hospital, and we knew she was going to go, and it was like a whole week in the hospital. My sister never left the hospital. I was there the majority of the time, and I watched visitors come in and out, and what do you say to your mom? You say what's most important. This is the night that Jesus knows he's getting ready to go. And these are the words he's praying. That we would be one, just as he and the Father are one. We would have complete unity. Listen, unity is a real big deal to Jesus. Okay? So let's put that, just, put a pin in that and say, yep, unity is a big deal. But what is Christian unity? What is it that Jesus is actually talking about? That's what we really need to kind of nail down and figure out. Because if you get this wrong, it could be a problem. Here's what unity means. The word unity means the state of being one, oneness, or totally combining all parts into one. Okay? The word community is basically common unity. What is it that brings everyone together? What's the central theme that the whole group is coming together around? That's community. Let's go to John 10:10 again. Let's look at this verse, and here's what he says. All I have is yours, and all you have is mine, and glory has come to me through them. I will remain in the world no longer, but they are still in the world, and I am coming to you, Holy Father. Protect them by the power of your name, the name you gave me, so that they may be one as we are one. So how is it that Jesus and the Father are one? That's the question. Because community can get kind of off base. What if your community is about football? Right? You have unity. You've all come together to basically watch the Buckeyes, beat Michigan yesterday, right? We were all in unity. What if your unity is not the unity that Jesus and the Father have? So you have to ask yourself, what is the unity that Jesus and the Father have? Well, let's go all the way back to the beginning of his time here on earth. And in Luke chapter 2, here's this incredible story where, so every year what would happen is all the people would go up to Jerusalem and they would celebrate the Passover together. So, you live out in a different area and you've got your family, and so Mary and Joseph, they get their people and they go into Jerusalem for that time of the year. And you would get everyone to go, Okay? So I'm not talking like just you pack up the car or you pack up your 3-hump camel or something like that, the limousine, and you go in. I mean, that could be the story, but you would get like everybody. You could be traveling with 50 or 60 or 100 people. All of your nieces and nephews, all of your cousins, all of your aunts and uncles, your grandparents. It could be the whole neighborhood all coming together. And so they're all born in Jerusalem. What happened was, when they left Jerusalem, they forgot Jesus. So, listen, I don't know if you can imagine that, but with that many people, you might be thinking, oh, I thought you had him. No, I thought, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. Where's Jesus? Who's got him? I mean, they're thinking, where is he? So they go back to Jerusalem. They're like, where is he? And this is what they find him. And in Luke chapter 2, verse 49, it says this: why are you searching for me? He's a teenager. I mean, who says that? Why are you guys looking for me? He said, didn't you know that I had to be about my Father's house? But they did not understand what he was saying to them. That is a typical teenage conversation, right? You don't get me. He said, don't you understand I had to be about my Father's house? Now, when he says his house, it doesn't mean like in Jerusalem, like 2354 Jerusalem Avenue. That's God's address. I have to be about that address. That's not what he's saying. When he's saying I have to be about my Father's house, he's saying the house would be the Father's affairs. Everything that the Father is about, his agenda. In fact, the King James Version actually says I had to be about my Father's business. Jesus was about the Father's business from day one. So, when we say unity, and Jesus he's a big deal to Jesus, and he wants us to be unified in one, the same way that he and the Father are one. He and the Father are one based on the Father's agenda. Jesus laid down his entire agenda to perform the Father's agenda. He was all about the Father's business. So, what is the Father's business? Well, let's go back to John 17. And look at when he's praying for us, you and I. Here's what he says in verse 21. That all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you sent me. So Jesus is saying, listen, Father, I want them to be one, so that somehow the rest of the world is going to realize that you sent me. Verse 23 says this: I and them and you and me, may they be brought into complete unity, to let the world know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. So here's what Jesus is saying. Let's be one. Let everyone be one, just as you and I are one. And now, Father, let them be one so that they'll know, the world will know, everyone will know that you sent me. And on top of that, then they'll realize that you love me, and let that love be on them. Let the world know that you love them, and that's why you sent me. That's the Father's business. And when he's saying, I want you to be unified, I want you to be unified in the Father's business, his affairs, his agenda. He's about the reconciliation of the world to himself. God has always been a God who made people that he loved and wanted to bring into himself. He's so creative, he's so loving, he had to make people. I mean, I suppose he didn't have to, but he chose to make people and have them be in relationship with himself. That's the beauty of who our God is. He is so amazing that he made people so that he could literally shower them with himself. Which is incredible. That's Christian unity. I gotta tell you something. I've been on campus for over a decade. And every year, and I mean every year, I have people come up to me and saying, hey, we should do something to unify all the ministries on campus. I've had people come to me and say, like individuals, I've had people at New Life come to me, and it happens every year. And listen, there's something inside me and something inside you, I bet, that thinks, man, wouldn't it be awesome if all of us did something really cool together on campus? Wouldn't it be beautiful? I mean, we know it's right. The problem is that what is it that we're going to do? And I have people come up to me, and sometimes I think, why are you have an agenda here, and I can see it, and you want everyone to be about your agenda, and I'm like, I can't be about that, you know? And then I'll have another person say, and then, so what is it you unify with? Well, one time, let me give you 2 examples. One time, it must have been 7 or 8 years ago, we had a group on campus that their goal was to unify all the groups on campus. That was their whole ministry. And I thought, man, what a great goal, but how are you going to pull that off? And so when they approached me, they're like, hey, can New Life help? I'm like, well, how do you say no to that? Hey, I want to unify all the ministries. Like, oh. I mean, you can't say no. You're like, Jesus, it's important to Jesus. But, so I'm like, okay, well, what do you want us to do? So they wanted us to give all the sound equipment, lend a set up and tear down crew, and have our like worship band lead out with some songs at this event called the One Event. And the only one in the room who probably knows what the One Event is probably Andy, because he was there. I don't know if anyone else was there. Anyway, listen, he's shaking his head because he knows the One Event. Let me explain the One Event. The One Event, we held it on campus. I think it was at Hitchcock. And we had all of our crew who worked really hard to do the setup and tear down. And we had our band come up and play a couple songs. And what they did is they got groups from all over campus to lead out with different types of music, different styles of music. We had different speakers. We had like folk bands. We had a Messianic Jewish band. We had a speaker who was going to give a word from the Lord. And let me say, it was pretty unique. And I'm telling you, we unified around the One Event. But if I knew anyone who didn't know Jesus and said, hey, will you come with me tonight? Knowing what was going to happen, I would have said, please do not come tonight. Run from this event. Because this event is not Jesus. Trust me, I know Jesus. He's not like what you're going to see here tonight. Because what happened was, it was like all these groups, someone gave them a mic, and they're trying to sell their CDs. They're like, okay, I'm going to show you how cool my ministry is. It was absolutely a disaster. I remember thinking, I will never, ever, and I mean never, if someone comes up to me and says, I want to be about unity, I'll be like, I don't care. Like, you want us to all pray on the oval? Not doing it. You know why? Because crazy people like want to attach themselves to this and then take their, this cannot be about Jesus. Can I get a word in? Amen. It was entertaining though, I will say that. But a couple years later, a group from InterVarsity approached me. And I know the leader, and he's a great guy. And he approached me and says, hey Ed, we're thinking about doing a unity event on campus. And I'm like, and he goes, wait, let me tell you what it is. We are going to have an event called The Price of Life. And many of you guys know what I'm talking about because you were there, you trained, you did, and you were involved in The Price of Life. And here's what happened. The InterVarsity guy came and said, listen, about a year and a half from now, we're going to have a team come in, and we're going to set up booths all over campus. And at these booths, what we're going to do is we're going to raise awareness about human trafficking. We're going to talk about, raising money for it, and we're going to talk about how it's really a picture of brokenness. Because the whole world is broken. God made a world that was supposed to be perfect, and he was going to interject into the world, and they were going to be his people. It was going to be great, but the world became broken. And as a result of that brokenness, it results in stuff like human trafficking. And so our job at that point was to communicate the awareness of how just horrible this is. And everyone agrees that this is an awful thing. Then we talk about, if they give us an opportunity, not only if, we would tell them that we believe that God sent his son down to reconcile the world that was broken back to himself. And as a result of the cross, as a result of the beauty of the gospel, that we now can partner with him in what he's doing and sharing that message and helping restore what has been, broken. And ultimately, God will fix the whole thing. But we were going to basically raise awareness, raise money, and then share the gospel all over campus. I looked at my friend from university. I said, listen, you can sign us up. We're 100% in. We'll do whatever it takes to help you. He said, the gospel is going to be central to the whole thing, and we're going to raise awareness and money for this issue. I said, we're in. We're in. He goes, are you sure? I said, we're in. Count us in. And listen, we helped recruit, train, rally people. We got people, almost all the major ministries on campus work together. People who I would not normally even hang out with, like, oh my gosh, I would never send my children to your ministry. But they were like, listen, we'll be about this. I'm like, then I will partner with you, my friend. We will share the gospel and raise it. It'll be incredible. It was the single most amazing event I've ever witnessed on campus in all the 11 years I've been here. It was true unity because the gospel was central to the whole thing. It was beautiful. So, why bring unity up in our series about reflecting? Because when we unite with what the Father is actually doing, we are going to reflect his glory. When we lay our lives down and unite about his business, that's when we are going to reflect his glory. Let me let you see just a little bit more of the passage. I'm just going to draw attention to it. It's a great passage. In verse 1, Jesus is praying. He says, Father, the time has come. Glorify your Son, that your Son may glorify you. For you granted him authority over all the people that he might have eternal life, or he might give eternal life to all those you have given him. Now this is eternal life, that you may know, or they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. I have brought you glory on earth by completing the work you gave me to do. And now, Father, glorify me in your presence with the glory I had with you before the world began. He's basically saying, okay, Father, I want them to know you. I want them to have eternal life, which is basically knowing you. I want them to see that. I want them to see your glory. And I have laid down my life to serve you, to be about your agenda. And I brought you glory. I've reflected you, is what he's saying. Now let them see me too. It's like he's saying, okay, I love them, but I want them to see me for who I really am. You know, I don't normally have this flesh on. I want them to see me. I want them to come to me. He goes on to say in verse 22, and I have given them glory, meaning the future believers, that you gave me, and that they may be one, just as we are one. Verse 24, Father, I want those you have given me to be with me where I am. I want them to see my glory, the glory you have given me because you loved me before the creation of the world. Righteous Father, though the world does not know you, I know you, and they know that you have sent me, and I have made you known to them, and will continue to make you known in order that the love you have for me may be in them, that I myself may be in them. This is what he's praying. I want them to know you. I want them to see your glory. Here on earth, I have laid down my life so that they could see your glory. Now glorify me so that they can see me. And God, I'm asking, Father, I want them to all come to me and be with me. Do you know why? Because I want them to know how much you love me. And I want that love you have for me to be on them. I want them to experience the love that you've given me. Who asks for that? Who would unify around that idea, that vision? That's what he's asking. That's what he wants us to be about. That somehow, by the way we lay our lives down, the world will see God for who he really is. That's the big deal. Unity is central to living a life that reflects God's glory. It's central. So let me be a little bit of an Apollo 13 nerd for a second, okay? I love the movie. Like I said, I watched it just the other night because I was so geeked up about sharing with you, I had to go watch it again. I'm like, and Tammy fell asleep and I was watching it at night, and at one point I was standing up, screaming at the television, But I wanted to show you something. Just a second, I want to show you a picture of the moon. So here's the deal. You guys know that some of you guys are engaged, right? And you're probably thinking, where are you going to go for your honeymoon? I don't even know where the word honeymoon came from because it's got the moon in it. It's kind of weird. But if you went to the moon on your honeymoon, this is what it would look like. It's like dirt. I'm sure Chris and Tara are probably thinking, man, I know the Caribbean's beautiful, or wherever they're at, they're on a cruise somewhere. But man, if we could just go to see some dirt somewhere, just some dirt. I mean, listen, if you were driving from here to Cincinnati, it'd be more exciting than driving through this. So what's out there? I see a bunch of dirt. What's it look like? Is there any colors? No, it's dirt. It's a moon dirt. It's dirt. That's the moon. Pretty exciting. We spent millions of dollars, got the brightest minds together, and to go land on a ball of dirt. It's great. In comparison, though, to the sun, this little dot up here, that's not that close, but the dot kind of represents how big Earth is in comparison to the sun. So you can't actually put a dot up there that you would say, well, that's the size of the moon, because you wouldn't see it on the screen. But this would be like the sun, right? 93 million miles from the Earth. This is God's thumbprint on the universe. Look at what I can do. And so this is so powerful that the energy that's giving off gets to us in 8 minutes. It's 93 million miles away. 93 million miles away. That's not like the Cincinnati back. I mean, it's humongous, right? You cannot fathom 93 million miles. The power that gets to us in 8 minutes. You can't look at it for very long before you hurt your eyes. In comparison, the moon's like a ball of dirt. It's just, you wouldn't drive there. You wouldn't visit there. I mean, unless you say, well, I went to the moon. But it's just dirt. This is majestic and beautiful. You can't even look at it. It's powerful. It's glorious. But if the moon lines up just perfectly, if it lines up perfectly, it kind of looks something like this, right? Ball of dirt. Ball of dirt. Something that doesn't have a lot of glory in and of itself. If it lines up perfectly with something that's glorious, then it looks different, right? It reflects something bigger than itself. Do you see that if we simply lay down our lives, unify with what the Father's doing, be about his business. And what is more important than his business, really? What have you got going on that's such a big deal in your life right now? That you're thinking, oh man, I cannot wait for this part of my life. Listen, is it really that big a deal? Because, listen, all the brightest minds did everything they could to save 3 people. We know that the gospel is the message that changes lives. What is so important that would step in front of that agenda to lay down our lives for the gospel? Because when we line up with the gospel, we are going to reflect his glory. We don't have to worry about trying to be empathetic, trying to be loving, trying to be forgiving and reconciling people. We don't have to worry about being servants. It'll just be natural when we lay our lives down for the gospel. So I wanted to just say that and encourage you guys and let you know that there's a beautiful thing that happens when we do that. In my life, I never feel closer to God than when I say, God, I want to be about what you're about. And God, if you struggle, like I get you. I know what it's like to be completely full of myself. And I never feel close to God when I'm about me. In fact, there are times I feel like a million miles from God, like, how could you even smile at me, God? I don't know why you love me, God. But when I lay my life down and say, God, I want to be about your agenda, that's when I experience his love and his peace, his mercy, his forgiveness, his grace. And it just kind of naturally kind of spills out on people around me as I focus on the gospel. So as I kind of finish up, and before Mary Jane and our band come back up, I just want to say just couple quick things. One is, can you imagine what we could do? Just New Life. I can't answer the question and fix every church and every ministry and everyone with a strange agenda. Like I'm not gonna adopt someone else's agenda that's not about the gospel. I can't fix it all. But what about just us? What could we do, New Life, if we were completely committed, completely unified with the Father's agenda? Just think about that for a second. Because there's no telling. Because it wouldn't even be us doing it. We would just say, okay, God, we're going to be about you, and then watch what he does. And I want to say something real fast, because we're in this Christmas season as we're heading in. Andy has written out like a 25-day devotional, which is, starts today. So I think he's got a sheet for you, and it's online. You can look at these devotionals. And what we're asking is that, hey, would you focus on Jesus? Would you focus on the King of Kings? Would you focus on his Father for 25 days? And I'm asking that you pray for 25 days this December. And starting next semester, we're going to be at the Field House, which is literally the backyard of Lincoln Tower and a rock throw from Laurel. And I think there's like 1,500 students that live there. I want to reach the whole campus, but man, we have a unique opportunity for one semester to be literally right outside their door. And we're going to try to find ways to reach them. And I guarantee you, some of you guys are so much smarter than I am. You might have an idea. You might have something that you're thinking that this is a way we can try to reach those towers this semester. But I think that what we're asking is that during Christmas, during the season, would you pray, God, help us to focus on you. Let's be about your agenda. And next semester, we want to try to reach those dorms. We're praying for 25 students from those dorms to be impacted by the gospel. So as we kind of pray, I just want to encourage you with just that. And lastly, that if you haven't been living for his agenda, I just have to ask you, what is it that's such a big deal that's stepping in the way? Would you consider that the gospel is bigger than that? So let us stand and pray together. Lord, I thank you for being a God who cares about us, that you sent your son down here, and he was praying for us on the night of nights for him. And I thank you. It's hard to fathom. God, I'm tired of living for something smaller than you. And I pray, God, that you would make it anything that seems less than you just be a bad taste in my mouth. God, I pray that for everyone in this room, that those things that we live for, that we think are so important, that if they get in the way of you, God, I pray that you would just turn our taste buds against it. Lord, help us to crave you, to crave your gospel, to crave your kingship over our lives. And I ask, God, that you would simply shine through us, that people would look at us at some point and go, there must be a God. God, I pray that you would reflect your glory and your beauty and use us as objects to reflect your light off of.